Shall we start, Vishal? I think we have decent
Yeah,
people.
we have 19 students on the board right now. We can start with the session.
Perfect. Great, great, great. First of all, very welcome to everyone here. Thank you for joining in on a weekday in evening. I know you all must have some or the other event, but again, thank you all for joining. I think I'll keep the session very candid. We've tried to restrict the registration to a very limited cohort. The intention being, I would honestly want to interact. So keep putting up messages as and when you want. Keep interacting as much as possible. I'll try to also keep activity that I can add in the process. And again, I'll start with the agenda. The agenda of this webinar is to talk about actuarial science as a profession. I know everyone here is somewhere thinking or would probably want to either want to pursue actuarial science, is already pursuing actuarial science, studying or something or the other. Maybe someone is here for someone else. But point being, we already know something about actuarial science. We now want to figure out exactly what it is because let's be honest, it's very, very, very niche a field. So I think that sets the context. I will quickly ask you guys a question. Please put it on message. Just confirm if speaking English as well as Hindi is fine. Like, is there anyone who's not comfortable with Hindi during the session? English is fine. Perfect, perfect.
There
Yes.
is Patience. She has joined from Africa, so Hindi might be a little challenging for her to
Okay, okay, okay. I'll
adjust.
keep it
Yeah.
very low. I think she'll be able to fit.
Asian, yes, you have raised your hand. You wanted to say something.
Actually, I don't know the Hindi language, so
No worries.
maybe
No worries. So
from
in that case, I'll try to restrict wherever there's a conversation related to actual sense, I'll try to restrict. But great, I think you already seem to be responding, so that's a very big plus for me. Okay, I'll start with the session. So I want to start with my quick introduction. So my name is Aman Loharuka. I am a qualified actuary by profession. I have worked as a consultant actuary for around like I've worked with Milliman, I've worked with EXL, then I worked with IAQS for a couple of years working as a director, looking after the academics and the student affairs. Then started my own startup. So I'm currently building an AI startup around career and placement, but it's a product thing. So a very different trajectory than what you would expect from a typical actuary, not sticking to uh, actuarial consulting per se. And that's also something that gives me a very decent overview of a lot of things that might help you guys. So the purpose of having the session again is not to talk about the program that we launched last year. Of course, we'll talk about it briefly towards the end, but the context is to help you guys understand, at least from whatever I know, to transfer that knowledge about actuarial science. So I think that's largely the context. Again, any point you feel that something is getting a little too heavy, you want to discuss anything, just feel free to raise your hand in case I'm not looking at the screen or type it out on the chat itself, and more than happy to engage in the conversation. Cool. With that out of the way, let me start with a quick question. Can anyone tell me what is certain? Like, is there something that you feel is certainly going to happen? Like, maybe you can put it on the chat window. Something, any example that you feel that it is certainly going to happen. Other than death, of course. I think death is certain. Anything that you feel is definitely certain. Switching to renewable energies. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. That's possibly a certain future. Okay, let me help you out with some few. What about professional jobs? Do you think like once you get a job, everything is certain in life, your career is going to be certain? Yeah, we'll eat up everything. Yes, yeah. I think we'll have a conversation about AI separately. That's a topic that I'm particularly working on as a startup founder. So a lot of insights as an actually I would be able to share. But yeah, I think I have three cues for you: investments, businesses, or professional job. Is there any certainty about it? Certainly not, right? I mean, people get laid off from a job. You can get transferred, or you can get surrendered, or you can basically get suspended from a government job as well. Investment is of course risky. Take it FD, bank can collapse. Take it people used to put money in the locker, but I don't know if you're aware, recently PNB Bank, one of the PNB banks ended up getting robbed. Their lockers get robbed. So investment or any, like even banks are not safe. Business, of course, is all about uncertainty. So the whole point being, there's a lot of uncertainty that we encounter in everyday life. Now, taking this a little further, think about riding a bicycle. Do you think you can fall? Like when you ride a bicycle, like I am assuming that everyone here knows how to ride a bicycle, a vehicle for that matter. So anyone who thinks that they are confident enough that when they ride, they'll not fall. So if you're comfortable, please put it on the message so that I know that you are active. So if you are confident that you know how to ride a bike and you will not fall, just type out like yes, no, something. Okay, so you certain that you know how to ride a bike, and if you ride a bike, I'm not talking about someone like someone hitting you from behind or someone coming in front of you, but when you're driving straight, will you fall? Cycle, anything. So, okay, so largely we think that we know cycle, but what if I say that there are so many other possibilities? Let's say you're riding a bike and the tire malfunctions, the tire blasts, you can fall. Like there's a decent probability for even for such a simple activity like riding a bicycle that can lead to you falling while riding. But the reason that we still don't think about it is because the probability of such small events happening is very low. Like the probability of that tire malfunctioning or the probability of suddenly the let's say the road corroding while driving is very low. As a result, even though there is a probability of something bad happening, we will still end up doing it, right? And the moment that I start putting scenarios like these that we just discussed about, or apocalypse, or 10 different things, you'll kind of, at least I'm sure you'll not get scared, but you'll at least start thinking, okay, maybe I should be a little more careful because there is a possibility that something wrong might happen, right? And that largely is exactly what is actuarial science. So if I were to, let's say, define actuarial science, let me define it from a Google sense. I think just before joining the session, I thought of going on Google and just typing out what is actuarial science. Let me read it out for you. So when you type what is actuarial science on Google, it'll say actuarial science is an interdisciplinary field that applies mathematical, statistical, financial theories to assess, manage, and mitigate primary risk primarily within insurance, pension, and finance industry. Very complicated an answer, but the essence is similar to a bike in any scenarios, especially in financial scenarios. There is a fair bit of chance that something might go wrong. Let's say I am lending money to you guys. There's a chance that out of the 25 people, or out of the 24 people that are there in the conversation, let's say I lend everyone 1 lakh rupees. There's a fair bit of chance that 10% might not return the money back to me. That, right? Like there's a fair bit, that's what is called NPA, non-performing asset, that someone might not repay the loan. But how do you come to the decision that if there is a 10% chance, would I invest or would I give money to the rest of the 20 to 21 people out there, right? As a bank, it's a question for me. Like I know that there's an uncertainty. Similar to riding a bike, I know that there's an uncertainty that when I ride a bike, there is a chance that I might fall. Still, I would still decide that I will ride a bike because I know that the probability is very low. Similarly, for a financial, when you when you are making an investment decision, you know that there is an uncertainty. You know that out of the 25 people out there, someone, maybe two, maybe one person will default, but that is not going to stop me from making an investment. So what would I as a bank do? Like let's say you guys put yourself in the same situation. Let's say you are a bank. What would you do when you already know that there is a 10% chance that 10% of the people that you're going to pay money to is not going to return the money back to you? So in that case, how would you respond as a bank? Put it out on the chat. I'll quickly repeat the question. You as a bank have money. There are 25 people. You need to lend 25 money to those 25 people, but you know that 10% of the people are going to not repay the amount. Essentially, it's a risk that you are already aware, but you don't know which are those 10 people. What would you do? Take some guarantee before giving loan. Okay. So you'll take collateral so that you reduce that risk. So you've understood that there's a risk, but you are mitigating that risk by saying that I'll take some collateral so that I can, in case someone does not pay me back, then I can take that money. Okay. So that is one. So two of you guys are saying you'll take collateral. What about the other guys? We have a decent crowd. Check their credit rating or something. Okay. I have checked everyone's credit rating, but I still know that 10% are not going to pay. I think everyone that has joined this particular session are fairly with a decent background, because that's why you are thinking about actuarial science. Like, that's why you know actuarial science. Still, so you would have credit score, but I still know 10% of you are not going to pay. Okay, so I'll repeat the question. I am a banker. There are 25 people on the call. I want to invest 25, I want to invest 1 lakh in each of these 25 people. But I know that 10% of the people are not going to repay me back. But I don't know which are those 10 people. So how would I act? So we have two people saying that we will take either I'll look at collateral or I'll look at credit ratings. Credit ratings, I already know everyone is good with. Raise interest rate percent enough using mathematics to still earn a profit. Okay, great. Agrima has a statistical answer to it. You'll raise the interest rate enough using mathematics to still earn a profit. Okay, anyone else? Check their history and other parameters while they fill the form for the investment and find out of them. Okay, so essentially underwriting, like that's what is called underwriting. When you are underwriting a risk, you are trying to evaluate. I have already evaluated everything. I know that every one of you are good, but my past experience says that 10% are still not going to repay me. But good attempt. That's essentially what is underwriting, which every bank, every insurance company has to do. Yeah, correct. Nothing is certain. I've already mentioned in the beginning. Absolutely nothing is certain, irrespective of how good I am. If I knew everything, I would be God. Okay, anything else? Cool. I think I'll take it ahead. So Agrima is very well mentioned that you would raise interest percentage enough using mathematics to still earn a profit. Essentially, what she's saying is she will basically apply mathematical, statistical, and financial theories to assess, manage, and mitigate risk primarily in the finance industry, right? This is exactly what is the definition of actuarial science. Let me put it across here. I'm just copying the definition from Google and pasting here. This is the exact definition that you get in Google. Essentially, what actuaries are doing is that they are understanding what is the potential risk in a particular business and deciding, can I mitigate that risk by diversifying that? Can I increase the interest rate so that even if that one person does not repay me back, I'll have earned enough from the others and I would still have some profit, such that even though that the other person, that 10% has not repaid me, I'll still make profit net. That's essentially how any finance related investments work, be it VCs, venture capital investments in banks or in insurance company. The same example in insurance company would have been that I know that there are 25 lives out here. I need to insure these 25 lives, saying that I'll insure you for 80 years. But I know that out of these 25 people, at least 2 people will die before 80 years. So how much premium do I collect to ensure that I am able to repay those 2 people who die and still make profit? This is an application in an insurance domain. So as Agrima pointed out, what actuarial science is an interdisciplinary field that applies mathematical, statistical, and financial model. Now, how can we differentiate actuarial science? Okay, I'll come to this. Let me quickly define actuarial science a little bit more in making it more simple. And I've kept the slides very limited just for this purpose. So essentially, actuarial science, like, because finance is such a vast field, you have a lot of data. So if you were remember, I mentioned that although I know that I've done my due diligence, I know that everything is already in place in terms of your credit score, in terms of collateral, everything. I still know that 10% is going to falter. Can be hundreds of reasons. Because I had a past experience, past data where I had already performed this exercise, I could associate a certain level of probability with each of that task. So when you add probability, that's a statistical measure. When you add, like, multiply certain numbers with the probabilities, that's a mathematical approach. As an actuary, you are in this juncture of using this data and taking the business decision. It's as simple as that. Sorry. I hope you're clear about what is actual science to the most basic crux. So if someone asks me what is actual science, I just say actuaries manage risk using probabilities. That's it. Clear, everyone? Perfect. Anyone who's still confused or found it a little too technical? Great. So this is essentially, in the nutshell, what is actuarial science. To make it a little bit more structured, I'll skip the definition. The role that actually is working can be summarized in three ways. One is quantifying the risk, second is predicting the risk, and third is minimizing the risk. So my quantification of the risk was the possibility of the people, like some people not paying me. How did I predict it? Past data associated the probability, and then how did I minimize it? Is by, like, adding some premium to the interest rate so that I can diversify my risk and make profits from outside places. So this is essentially what is quantifying risk. What industries can you work in? Now, limited it's not, but actuaries are, again, it's a niche profession. There is a limited number of actuaries. I think number is 515 as per the IAI Institute, but cumulatively IAI IFOA, there are less than 2,000, 2,500 actuaries in India. And this number, if you compare it with USA or UK, which has far lesser population, this number is like minuscule. In USA, in UK, there are more than 10,000, 15,000 actuaries in both countries. So because of the fact that the number of actuaries are very low, the main or the most common places where actuaries end up working is life insurance, non-life insurance, pensions, enterprise risk management, something related to FRM, investments, banking, data science, and health insurance. Now, why is it limited to insurance? Is because government has a restriction. I won't say government has that, but it's an industry norm that every insurance company is largely run by actuaries, insurance particularly, because there's a lot of, like, the entire premise of insurance is you are taking someone else's risk and you are giving, like, you are earning premium for it. So the entire premise of the business is risk. That's why actually become a core center of it. But that being said, you get out of it. Actuaries work in industries like I myself am working on an AIS IT SaaS product. Actuaries work in automobile industry. Actuaries are there in Amazon. They are there in a lot of fields. So it's like engineers don't just do engineering, right? Like, or CAs don't just end up doing auditing or tax work. They can do hundreds of other things. It's just that because there's a regulatory requirement, you've been taught with a particular mind frame. Like when I say mind frame, essentially like when I say, let's say, the entire exercise that we did of banking, usually in actuarial science, it will be through insurance, through taking examples of life. But this entire concept or analogy of applying statistics to a real life scenario remains same across. Think of it like, let's say, if I want to start a transport business or delivery business, food delivery business, Swiggy or Zomato. I know Zomato also hire actuaries. How, and I know I have a friend who's working there, so that's why I know how it helps, how like similar theory applies in Zomato or Uber for that matter, is because even in, let's say, Zomato, there are hundreds of deliveries happening. Out of those hundreds of deliveries, at least 10% would have some or the other issues. In fact, more than 10%, but not all of them would be genuine. So you have to decide which one to, like, how many of these do we decide to repay and how many do we actually ignore, right? So of course, there's a day-to-day decision that will happen. But on a financial projection sense, for the investors, for the decisions that you take, how do you decide the pricing for deliveries? All those things taking into account, there are people like actuaries who actually design and decide how to take that risk into account when you are making a business plan. So that's essentially what is actuarial science. Now, another example, if I were to take, as I mentioned, actuaries work in a lot of places. one place, car insurance. So Tesla hires a lot of actuaries. Why do they do it? If you think about car insurance, largely how car insurance work is based on probability of crashes. That would be based on location factor, sadly who's driving history, uh, in fact color of the car. You would be surprised. Okay, let me ask this as a question. Do you know which car has the highest car accidents? Like which car color has the highest accidents? There's a particular color which, correct, red is the color, not black. I don't know how, but statistically, as per data, red is the color that has the highest number of that attracts the highest accidents. So usually in India, it's not as prevalent as of now, but in USA, even the color changes your insurance premium, age of the vehicle, all this. But now when Tesla came up, said that every time that you drive the car, it is autonomous driving. It is going to improve the overall reliability of the driver or the algorithm, and it'll only improve. So things like age, things like location, these are factors that are going to get irrelevant. So there's a complete new way of designing a system that will be able to evaluate and collect correct premium. That's where again actuaries work with Tesla as well. So that's how the entire industry is. And again, it's not restricted to insurance or banking or finance. It's just that the entire premise, the education is most relevant here because risk is highest in the factor. That being said, even if you set up a chemical factory, you'll have similar risks. So wherever there's a risk, which is pretty much everywhere, you can work. But because there's more demand in finance industry, actuaries end up working in finance industries more. Okay. Just a second. Okay, so the next question is who should consider actuarial science as a profession? So there are certain parameters that usually actuarials or actuarial professionals are associated with. One is international opportunities. Reason being, like actuaries has multiple bodies. Every country has their own body, and most of the big economies have some or the other collaboration. So there's something called as mutual recognition agreement, which allows one country's actuaries to work in another country. For example, if you want to work in USA, you probably would have to do CPA, right? But in India, it's CA that would work. So that's not the case in actuarial science. Like if you study in one place, you can get an MRA and work in a lot of places. So there's a lot of international opportunities. There's high standard because it's a niche profession. It's considered highly dignified. So only intellectuals usually get into this profession. A decent work-life balance. You have a lot of influence. Attend GCA. So it's happening from Sunday. You'll see how much influence, what kind of people actually attend and work as actuaries, and you'll be able to see how strong the network is. There's a fair bit of reward. It is one of the highest paying professions after all. There's a decent intellectual satisfaction because it is not an easy profession. So there is a lot of mathematical, statistical stuff that you have to do. Of course, we'll get into that as well on how difficult it is, but there's a fair bit of intellectual satisfaction. You get to network with good people, and there's a decent support system because of how niche the industry is. So largely, if you feel that you want to be associated with these kind of things, and of course, if your interest lies in identifying, quantifying, and like visualizing risk, I think it's a great profession for you to be in. What do you study? Largely, there are 4 pillars to actuarial science. There's mathematics, there's statistics, there's business and economics. So mathematics and statistics forms the technical base of the industry. Economics is because economy, like everything that happens in business is related to economics. So you have to associate everything here. For example, in the same example that we were talking about lending money, think about there are 100 people that are out there. Of those 100 people, let's say the economy has been in a bad state. Earlier, I was saying that 10% of people are going to default. If the economy is bad, that means that there's a possible higher chances of defaulting. At the same time, when the economy is bad, the government would reduce the interest rate further so that the people would be able to afford or lend better money so that they can reconstruct their life. So how do I decide where to invest, or how do I decide an interest rate when I already know that the bank might reduce the interest and I might have to bear the brunt? So there are a lot of factors that would come in, and hence economics is important. And ultimately, the entire purpose of everything is to take some action, which is usually in a business scenario. So that's why you need some level of business understanding. So these 4 subjects forms a pillar of Actuarial Science. Where do you work on? We've used IEQS's placement chart, but largely it covers a fair bit of segment. So a fair decent amount works around 70%. In fact, work in insurance industries, life insurance, non-life. There's health, there's casualty and property and casualty. A lot of places. A lot of them work in risk advisory, FRM related or CFA related roles. A lot of them work in as business analysts. Some of them started working in insurtech. So in the last 2-3 years, I've been having conversation with a lot of actuaries who started talking about starting their own insurance company or doing something in insurtech. So that's something that's been growing. Investment is again something that you can go for. And then there's financial modeling analysis, all this. What kind of companies are there? Of course, all the insurance companies, decent banks, decent finance companies, big fours. There's consulting boutiques, actual consulting boutiques. All these are people who you typically would work for, or you can start your own business. That's always a good option. How do you pursue actual science? There are two ways. One is, okay, before that, Ashia. So there are two routes. One is a direct route, one is through a degree. Direct route is there are 13 papers that you have to give. Those 13 papers have, so there are two levels. There's an associateship, there's a fellowship. As an associateship, you have to clear all the core principle and all core practices papers. So there are around 7 core principle papers. There are 3 core practices papers. These practices are essentially, as the name suggests, about practicing. Actual practicing is business related, more model practices, financial modeling on Excel, communication practices, things what you would have probably done in your 8th or 9th about email writing, just in a more professional setup. Core principle includes actuarial statistics, actuarial mathematics. So these 4 forms a foundation of how you think about risk. And business is again around economics, around accounts, and around communication in itself. Once you get the associateship, the next thing you go for is fellowship. So after you're done with these 10 papers, you have to clear 3 more papers. Of those 3, 2 would be specialist principle, which is going to be like either of the 2. So there are SP1 till SP9. You can select any 2 based on your interest and whatever work experience you have. And then there's a specialist advanced paper. The specialist advanced paper is essentially you pick up one core area where you want to specialize, where you want to improve. So for example, I have specialized in investment and finance. So I gave SA7. So a lot of people who are in insurance company would give life insurance SA2. So depending on where you're working, what you want to specialize in, you can pick up a specialist advanced paper. Okay, I think before we move to route 2, I want to take some questions. I think after that, there's just 2 routes. There's some FAQs and then there are questions. And then I'll talk about the hybrid program that we have launched. So before I start, I want to quickly address whatever are the existing questions. No need to put in more questions. We'll be talking about that separately. Here, I'm just going to address the existing question. This is the number of fellows. The number of fellows are around, as I mentioned, 2,500. So the number that is mentioned in the deck is 515. It's not the latest number, I'm very sure. We cannot mention a number without some source. So it is the previous established data on the website from IIA. Based on the definition, how do you differentiate actual risk management course like FRM or IRM? Largely similar. The only difference is actuarial science is a little bit more detailed. So FRM, these are things that are a little more focused on risk and bank. Insurance, actuarial science covers risk as well as a lot of broader concepts. So it's more like a MBA finance with more technical knowledge. That's what is actually. So let's say I have, in fact, if I talk about paper, parallel paper itself, 1.5 paper, 1.5, around like 1.5 is around 50%. Around 50% of the syllabus of CFA is covered in IAQS's syllabus itself, which is again, IAQS covers around 70% of the actual content. So 50% is CFA. Again, similar in FRM also 50% is covered here itself. So there's a very decent overlap. It's just that every industry has a different degree that they have usually picked up, but it's all the lines are getting blurred. Actually, I started working with FRM. So I know a student who graduated from IAQS and is currently working with people who are CFAs and MBA finance in a risk advisory team. So yeah, it's hardly any difference from technical risk management perspective. Will the PPT be shared with us? I can share it across. Being actually is basically making risk strategies. Yes. Does completion of the IFOA license allows for a direct application? So there's something called as MRA, Mutual Recognition Agreement. If you clear these papers that we have mentioned here, I hope you can see my screen. Yeah. These papers that are mentioned here, if you qualify from these papers, it's exactly the same between IFO and IA. In fact, the study material is also the same, so no difference. CAS and SOA are the second, like USA's actual bodies. They have a little different paper structure, but content is largely the same. So even they have mutual recognition agreement between IFOA and CAS. In fact, I'll talk about the program, but our program is recognized by both CAS as well as IFOA because the content is very similar. Which jobs can you actually do after learning these skills in India or abroad? Okay, I think we've somewhere covered it. How to decide which community? Okay. Okay, so these are actually questions that will be better in discussion. So anything technical that you would want to ask before in questions in terms of papers itself, like any doubt about what are the kind of actual papers? All the other generic questions around or more broader questions we'll take up once we go to the Q&A, which happens in I think 10 more minutes. But any more technical questions that you want me to address right now around papers, around time? How many paper can be solved in a year? It's up to you. There's no restriction. If you have the ability, you can solve 5, 6, 7, 8 papers as well. But typically, what we've seen is people give 2 papers a year. So one paper in one diet, one paper in one diet. That's the most standard approach right now. How does exemption work? Okay, I think I'll introduce exemption and then I'll discuss about that. What is harder, FRM or actually? Actually, it's a little harder because actually contains more content than FRM. So FRM is a certification. Actual is a charter degree. Which exam is more difficult, IA or IFOA? Largely same now. IAI's result fluctuates a lot more. IFOA is a little more standard. So IAI sometimes is more easy, sometimes is more difficult. IFOA is largely standard, so predictability is higher with IFOA. Okay, I think we don't have as many technical questions. I'll quickly cover it and then come to all the questions. Two routes we've discussed. What are the issues with routes? Okay, I think I'll skip this. I'll just talk about the route itself again. So when you say direct papers, essentially giving these 13 papers directly through the institute. The second route is through degree. So when I say through degree, there are around 25, 30 universities across the globe that have tied up, like that teaches actual curriculum. And they went to IFOA, IAI, as well as CAS and other bodies. And they said that we teach very similar content. So if the student clears the uh, gets a degree from our institute and has reasonably scored well in certain subjects, why do the students have to reappear for the same exams with you? So with that premise, the universities got accreditation from IFOA and other bodies, largely IFOA because they are the oldest body. And as a result, through the degree route, what happens is instead of giving papers individually in a silo, you work in a degree format where you get a degree, where you get exemptions for the papers that you clear. And if you're able to, it's not an easier route. I won't say it's an easier route. It's a more structured route where you have better network opportunity, better circle, better mentorship, and better access to like job markets after that, because there's a degree associated with it. But you have to still perform at the same level. It's like you have to ensure that you are attaining the scores that are needed for exemptions. And if you get through the degree, then you get exemptions for certain papers. So in India, there are 2 institutes that offers exemptions. Both are managed by IAQS. There's one in Mumbai, University of Mumbai. There's one in Lavard, Gandhinagar, that is Rashtraksha University. And the Rashtraksha University one is a hybrid program, which can be done completely online. Only the exams happen offline. Both of the institutes for masters, they have 7 papers exemption. So of these 13 papers, these core principal papers, except CB2, CB3, sorry, CB3 is a very standard project paper. So the 6 papers form core principle and CP1. So this is considered as the most difficult paper in actual degree. These 7 papers you have exemption for. So in case you do through the degree route, especially if you're in India, then you don't have to, in case you get exemptions, you don't have to separately give the papers again. So that's what degree route is. What degree route does for you is it gives you like one single focus point in terms of how you are preparing. There's, as I said, some placement opportunities. You get to expand to the network. You learn a lot more software. So in silos, software's learning is not as easy. We ensure that in a degree format, you're able to learn the softwares. There are a lot more international opportunities because there's some tie-ups. and then you have exemptions directly. So that's in case of a second route, that is through degree. Largely, that kind of gives you a brief of what actuarial science is. Now, I also want to quickly, before we get into the entire Q&A, quickly take 5 minutes to discuss about the degree, like the course that we have recently launched last year, that is MSc in Actuarial Science with Data Analytics and Hybrid program. So it's a course that's offered by Rashtraksha University, as I mentioned, has 7-paper exemption. You completely learn online. There's a live online lectures. Of course, there's recording, and you have to give papers offline. There are multiple centers across the globe, largely like depending on the number of students, a cluster is formed and a exam center is made near that for you to give paper. The paper is, of course, in pen and paper. Otherwise, it's very similar. Like there are two programs, online and offline, very similar. There's placement support, of course. About RRU, RRU is an institute of national importance under the Ministry of Home Affairs. So think of anyone in security, they would know about Rashtraksha University, beautiful 230-acre campus in Gandhinagar. IEQs, I think we largely have a context around 2018, so around 8 years in existence. Only institute in India that are managing accredited program of IFOA and now CAS as well. Program highlights are hybrid learning, lecture access, placement cell, examination, practical learning. I don't want to bore you with all this. There's a syllabus in case you're interested, then we can talk about syllabus after this. How, like, what's the eligibility, what's the fee structure, what is the outcome, everything is mentioned here. So maybe I can ask Vishal to send you guys the brochure of this particular program as well. Global accreditation perspective, you get exemptions from IFOA and you get waivers from CAS. So CAS calls it waivers. So there are 5 papers equivalent of 7 IFOA papers that you get exemptions or waivers from CAS. CAS is the it's the non-life body, actuarial body of USA. So in case you're working there or you intend to work there, you have to get degree from there. Now, talking about why pursue MSc in Actuarial Science. Again, I think I'll not want to talk about the program completely. I just wanted to introduce you. There's some placement numbers for you to go through, the softwares that are covered, the placement partners that you have, and what are the career opportunities after this degree. There's a lot of FAQ about the program itself that, again, we can do separately. You'll find the brochure. In the brochure itself, you'll find the advisory board as well. So I think you, in case you are in finance, you might have seen Nilesh Shah. He's the MD of Kotak AMC. He comes on CNBC a lot. Everyone else as well is veteran in their own industries, ex-LIC, MD, the Edu Board Counselor, LIC's MD, ex-Commissioner, Marsh McLennan's VP, KNAV. It's a very big consulting firm, their partner. So largely very decent names in terms of who are governing or who are looking after the program. I'll come to the FAQ now and then pick up all the questions that I have. I can see a lot of questions coming in. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, I have some set of questions that already were there with me. So how to start in actuarial science or how to start in actuaries is a question that we get a lot. Essentially, we mentioned 2 routes, through degree or directly papers. What degrees does is it gives you a little bit more time, so you can at your own pace keep on giving papers and pursuing. In case you want to fast track it, let's say you want to focus that, you want to get done with the papers, you want to start working quickly, then in 2 years you get a lot of papers, condensed knowledge, and hence you have a better chance of, I won't say getting ahead, but a better kickstart to your actual journey if you go through the degree route. What is the actual difficulty level of this course? Difficulty is very subjective. You might find economics easy, I might find mathematics easy. Both of them have to be studied. So it's very subjective difficulty, but it's not like NEET or JEE level difficult. It is fairly like there's no rote learning here. So you have to understand everything and it requires fair bit of focus. So if you like anyone who's giving exams, you would see that they would at least be studying 2 hours every day, but you don't have to study 8 hours every day. So, and think about it, like most actuaries give half of the last set of papers everyone gives along with their exam. So the last 3 to 4 papers along with their job. So you have a full-time job and you're also giving papers. So just think about how difficult would that actually be. But yeah, that being said, it's not a straightforward course either. It requires some interest in numbers. Do I need fast calculation? No, you have calculator. It's not about maths. It's about visualizing numbers. So I'll take my example. Every time that you will throw 2 numbers at me, I'll immediately start thinking, what is the percentage of it? I'll visualize in a pie. So I love looking at numbers. So I'm not very good at fast maths. So the entire point being, even if let's say you like numbers, or let's say think of, if do you start calculating what is the discount that you have gotten, things like that also, if you like, then you'll probably enjoy the entire journey of actual science. What can we do after PG in finance? After post graduation, the best is directly start working. If you don't want to work and you want to do a specialization, there's PhD, there's of course actual science you can pick up. There's a lot more as well. Like you can do. It's very personal a question. What would these careers be affected by AI or recession? Honestly, yes. Every profession is going to be affected by AI. But the good thing is, AI, like actual science as a profession, is very regulated, or it sits with a lot of people's money. The thing with AI is AI cannot be held responsible, but a human can be. So actuaries or CAs for that matter, the reason that these professions are always going to be there is because there is going to be a shareholder commitment, there is going to be a stakeholder commitment towards the numbers that are produced. So AI will be used a lot in the profession, but it's not going to replace it. Rather, because of AI, so I'll give you an example. Before AI, before 2019 and ChatGPT, actually still do a lot of financial projections. So that's like, we used to do 100, we had 100 parameters, and we would do projection of what would be the future profitability. But that would be based on 100 parameters. After AI, that 100 parameters became billion parameters. The core concept still remains the same. You have data, you are predicting for future, but the parameters increased so much that the accuracy improved. So now people have started using AI a lot more in the job, but the job still remains largely the same. So the quality of work is only going to improve because you'll see the number much closer and much faster because of AI. Can we start a business after this course? I am a living example. I have my own startup after completing actual science. So yes, you can definitely start your own course, business. And how does it compare to CFA FRM? I think this was one of the questions in chat as well. I think I've answered this. Cool. I'll jump quickly to the questions that are here because we just have 15 minutes.
Yes, and Aman, a lot of questions here asked by the people.
I am just picking up from, does completion of IFA license allows direct? I think I've done till here. So I'll pick from Poonam Soni's question at 6:27. Then we'll have one-on-one interaction as well. Which jobs can you actually do after learning the skills in India or abroad? There's no restriction. You can do any job. It'll be easier for you to find actual jobs that are listed as actuaries, so the competition will be low there. For example, if I want to get a job as a equity research analyst, MBA finance people are fighting for it, CFAs are fighting for it, and I'll also fight for it. I am eligible, but my competition is tough. For jobs that are listed as actuaries, the competition is very low. So that's the difference, India or abroad. But you can get into any field. There's no restriction. You'll qualify for most of the jobs that are out there. How do you decide which community to approach, IA or IFOA? See, if your intention is that you want to go out, then definitely IFOA is better. If you're certain that you want to stay in India, then IA is better. IAI does not have, like, it has a lot of variability. There's a lot of change that happens. IFOA is very constant. Like, the predictability is much higher. Otherwise, content is absolutely the same. Difficulties on an average, it's largely the same. There's corporates does not distinguish between IA and IFO, so I don't think it really matters. So it's a personal choice, like whether you want to stay in India or abroad. And IFO is like 20-25% more expensive than IA. Why are there few actuaries in India? It's such a high-paying job. Awareness. Most people. So we did a press conference last year for launching the program, and there was a senior journalist who asked me that people don't know how to pronounce actuarial science. How do you expect there to be awareness? I hope you're getting the question. लोगों से actuarial science बोला ही नहीं जाता है. So firstly, it's a foreign term. Second, the awareness is already pretty low. So end up people not knowing it, but it's picked up fairly large. So when I started it, I used to find 1 in 100 people who would know about actuarial science. Today, I find 1 in 10 people who knows about actuarial science. So it's already 10 times and it's only going to increase. So you will see a lot more actuaries definitely coming in future. After becoming a fellow member, can we get exemption? Yes, it's called MRA, Mutual Recognition Agreement. From one institute, you can get another institute's like fellowship. How many papers can be solved in a year? I think I've answered this. How does exemption work? So how does exemption works is, so let's say you're in a particular, let's say SEM1. So in the degree program, what happens is every paper is broken down into 3 to 4 subjects, 2 to 3, depending on again the content. So let's say I'll take example of CS1. CS1 has been broken down into 3 subjects because the content is very wide and we want to relate one subject to another wherever possible. So how exemptions would work is you have different subjects and you have to attain on an average there's an exemption threshold that every time IFOA will give, which is very similar to their existing diet paper, and the student has to on a weighted average score that or cross that threshold. So let's say I have paper A, paper B for CS1. The weightage is 50-50 marks and the threshold is 60. So if I have scored 55 in paper A and 65 in paper B, weighted average becomes 60, I am eligible. So if I get exemption, if I become eligible for exemption, after I get the degree, I'll go to my IFOA account. I'll like find there's an option like apply for exemption through university route, upload my university paper automatically in their exam window. It'll start showing exempted through university. So they don't have to give the paper again. That's largely how exemption works. The number of split can be different. For example, CS1, CB1, very straightforward. There's no split. So the entire paper is covered in a single subject. Which is harder? I think I've answered this. Which exams are more difficult? Again, answered it. No difference. Very like the difference is predictability. Results are yes. Pratham results have not come out. That's what I was mentioning. IA is a little bit more unpredictable. Variability is high. Is IA considered worldwide? Not as much as IFOA, but in larger economies, you'll get the recognition. But yeah, in case you want to have a worldwide, like you want to have that approach or you want to have your options open, it's recommended to go through IFOA. Even difficult than CM1. What is even difficult than CM1? I'm not sure. We'll have this question one-on-one after I'm done with the set. Any age criteria? Nothing. We have a student who's age 62. We have a student who was aged 18. So there's no age criteria. And I know, so there's an MD. I recently had a interview with him. He was the MD. He's now left his job and is doing again his own startup. But he was the MD of SAS. SAS is a very big enterprise risk company. He completed his MBA from FMS and then started doing actuarial science. That means age of somewhere around 31. So there's no age restrictions. Please share the PPT and the brochure. Vishal, please do that. How much should be to get an IAQS exam in order to get exemptions from IFOA paper? I think I've answered that. Largely 60, take 65 for a better, safer window. Hello everyone, in case, okay, so question. We can have coaching for each exam separately by this degree? Yes, you can have coaching as well for each exam. I think that's a separate question. So I personally, and very honestly, most of us who've qualified in the last 3, 4, 5 years have done through that route itself, or they've done self-study. The problem with coaching, I personally feel, is that one, like if you want to do degree route, don't do coaching, you do self-study. Because when you do self-study, your concepts are better. In coaching, what happens is the approach is to clear paper. If you're coaching, there'll be a set, like there'll be a particular way on how you will be completing the entire set. So what would happen because of that is, because of the approach where you're just giving coaching, you will just focus on a paper. By the time that you reach third, fourth, fifth, sixth paper, you'll 100% have forgotten what you have studied in the first, second paper. Sit for the interview. The interview will ask you for the first or second paper for sure. And that's where you'll fumble and realize that, okay, I should have focused on the concepts more. So clearing paper separately is fine. I personally feel coaching through the coaching route, you focus a little too much on clearing paper, which is a wrong approach. Very quickly, once you start working, you realize that industry values knowledge over papers. So that's my take on papers. That being said, degree is a little bit more holistic. As I said, you have tight-knit community. There's a lot of support system that is there. You get an MSc degree itself. So there are other benefits, of course. But yeah, that being said, there's no right or wrong answer. Something might suit someone better. You should do it. I personally feel that doing self-study would be the second best option if you were to ask me. I'm a final year engineering student at AIML with 3 actual exams cleared, grade, and appearing for CM1, CV3 in May 26. So could you please suggest, should I apply for a job with my experience or start? Could you refer me there if there's current opening? For the current openings, you would be able to find through LinkedIn itself. Of course, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll try to help you for the job as well. And where should I apply? I think nothing better than LinkedIn. Could we switch between IAI and earlier it was, Now it's not. In between, they did allow for once, like you can transfer from IFOA to IA or IA to IFOA one way, but that's also in block, but it's very confusing and it keeps on changing. So decide one and stick to that. It's not going to hamper your decision later on anyways. Is actually a monotonous desk work. Initially, yes. Honestly, in the first 2 years or now in the first year, you'll feel that it is monotonous. But once you start seeing how the numbers are getting found, once you start like getting involved in the decisions, you'll start enjoying it a lot more. Like then it will not be monotonous because scenarios keeps on changing. So once you start understanding how numbers are working in a particular business, you'll have a lot of fun. So it's just that the discussions doesn't happen with the industry as much as it happens on Excel, but it's like it is a desk job, but it's not a monotonous desk job. The first year you'll definitely feel it's monotonous, but once you start looking at numbers, understanding where it's coming from, it'll be fun. How's your work? How's your work-life balance? How is my work-life balance? Mine is fairly good. I'm done with my studies. Problem happens for those who are studying. For till you are done with your papers, honestly, like it's a little bit too, I won't say false, but it's a little bit too glamorized that actuaries don't have work-life balance. They do have. The problem is because of exams, there's always a stress in the back of their mind. Okay, bhai, exam, like I have to give my exam, so I should not enjoy as much. There's a pressure that most actuaries, when giving exam, live with. So that's a problem. You would have time. You won't be wasting time. It's a good thing. But you will have time, but you'll always have that stress that I have an exam in the next time. So that's my take on work-life balance. What is the eligibility of exam route? Do you need bachelor's degree? You can do it while you are in undergrad. You don't need a bachelor's degree. You just need to have cleared your 12th marks. So anyone has having a 12th degree can sit for the course. Any age is fine. Any background is fine. So even if in a so even if a person has cleared some exams earlier, he can apply for exemptions for other exams or has to be a new membership. Yeah, it's fine. Like most of the people have cleared 1, 2, 3 papers who are currently in the batch as well. So even if you've cleared papers, you can for the rest of the papers you have to. So it's individual paper wise exemption. Only for the papers that you feel is important, you give exemption. So there are a lot of people who have come for 2 or 3 papers only. So see, for example, CM2 and CP1 are very difficult to clear yourself. So a lot of people enroll for the program and are not focusing as much on the other papers, but on these 2 papers because only these 2 they want exemption and other they've already cleared. And this degree and exemption of the exam is the IFOA only, not as of now. IFOA and CAS, IAI we have applied. It'll take 1 more year, but as of now, IAI and CAS only. IFOA and CAS only. What does a life of an actuary look like? It's I think we've mentioned, and it can be lot. So actually, we've talked about a generic scenario of what actuaries do. There are hundreds of possible fields. So in an insurance, like in an actuarial team itself, there's underwriting, there's pricing, there's reserving, there's shareholder reporting, there's cash flow testing. There's a lot of other things that happens. So you'll have to pick up which industry you are, and you'll keep on revolving and exploring and finding your niche. So it's not very straightforward an answer to what kind of job it is. Although it looks niche, but it's very broad. Can you tell about the CAS waivers? So there are 5 papers that CAS takes, and in case you clear the exams here with the right threshold, you get waivers. Very straightforward. Sir, with my exams cleared as mentioned, so would it be beneficial to join program? My graduation is completed. Till then, I'm hoping those. If you've done all 6 papers or CP1 as well, I don't think the program is for you. The program is more for people who have done up till 4 papers. Beyond 4, in case a lot of people that have cleared 4 and more who are enrolled are people who have already attempted the paper 2 or 3 or 4 times and still have not been able to clear. So I don't think you really need the our program. The good thing with hybrid is you can do it along with the job. So most of the people who are working, like who are in the program, are already working. So in case you are able to clear the papers, I don't think you need it. In case you don't clear the paper, maybe that's when you might want to consider getting into the program. Or in case you're not able to find a decent job yourself, that's another time that you should get in the program, because you start getting placement support in the second semester itself. So like it does not hamper your earning capability anyways. What is the process of admitting in the MSc course? you should reach out to Vishal. Vishal has already mentioned his number. There's a test that you have to go through. It's called QAT or RSET at RRU. After that, there's a personal interview, and if you clear both of them, then you get a offer letter. Where are the exam centers located? For hybrid, so the majorly Mumbai and Lavad, Gandhinagar. But other than that, depending on the number of cluster, we have tie-ups with a lot of places. In fact, there's an exam center in Dubai, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, a lot of places. So if there are sufficient number of students, we can always open it up. So, but yeah, two are always going to be there. That is Gandhinagar and Mumbai. And in Gandhinagar, that is the main center of hybrid program. Everything is taken care of by the institute. So you just have to ensure that you come to the airport or the station, and logistics, stays, everything we take care of, so that you have a good. And if, in fact, after the exam at RRU campus, there are 2 days or 3 days, depending on the availability, a campus session, a campus immersion session planned, where a lot of senior people come and talk to you, to talk you about the industry, to give you a networking opportunity. To give you an example, this year we had Invest Lab CEO come in. We had Devashish Panda, who was the ex-chairman of IRDI, come in. We went to IFSCA, which is going to be one of the biggest employers, like it's the gift city essentially. Which I'll just give you 1 second, sorry guys. Sorry, guys. I was getting a call again and again. Yeah, where was I? Yeah, campus immersion. So we had Devashish Panda, we had PK Arora sir, he's the member actually at IRD, again, very senior person. We went to IFSCA, which is Gift City, where around 34 actually insurance and reinsurance company have registered. So you get a very good access to the seniors in the industry. Where are the exam centers? I think you answered that. Have sent a request, please. Sure, I'll accept the request once I see it. Thank you. Have sent you a LinkedIn request. Done, done, done. Mine too. Done. Any other question, guys? I think I'll take 2 more maybe, and then I have to open another call. Anyone, any question, guys? All good? Okay. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. You've been lovely. Thanks, everyone, for staying till the end. Vishal, you can take up in case there's anything else. I'll have to drop.